Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our next Evidence-Based Practices for SEL webinar. And today we're going to hear about Sanford Harmony. In just a moment, I will turn this over to Amy Griswold, who's our speaker today. Just wanted to set up a few housekeeping details just to make this clear for our hour together. So Amy has prepared a number of slides that answer a number of the questions we've been receiving in these webinars as we move forward. So you are welcome to put questions into the chat box, but we are going to wait till the end to take additional questions because it's very possible she will be answering questions right in the webinar. But please feel free to leave them. I'll just monitor that. This webinar is being recorded, and once we have it back from our vendor who has to close caption it, it will go on the website next to the alignment tool for Sanford Harmony. I've included the website in the chat box, so if you are interested in seeing how the program aligns with the Wisconsin competencies, it's right there. And in that section is where this webinar will go. There's also an SEL YouTube playlist, which will include all of the evidence-based webinars as well as the monthly ones. And I will put a link to that in the chat box as well. So you can just monitor that for when this webinar comes on board so that you can review it or share it with staff. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Amy and let you take it from here. You ready to go, Amy?
Yes, I am. Very
All
good.
right. Hand
All
off.
right. All right. Good afternoon or good morning to me. I'm in Arizona, so it's still morning here. But my name is Amy Griswold. I'm going to go ahead and just introduce myself for a minute. Hopefully you can see me okay. So my name is Amy, and I was a former elementary teacher. I'm actually from Iowa, but now I live in Arizona. But I'm excited to share with you today about Harmony. And like Beth said, I have lots of different opportunities to answer questions throughout this webinar today. So hopefully you will learn a lot more about the program and how it fits, and if this is a good fit for you to use. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, sorry, there we go. I was having a little technical difficulty for a minute. All right, so I want to start with just talking about what am I going to share today. So really going to focus on why Harmony, establish Harmony goals. We're going to focus on the two essential components of Harmony, which are Meet Up and Buddy Up. We're going to look at the lessons and activities. I know there were questions about the materials. So we're going to look at what's involved in the kits, what materials are available, but also we have online resources available as well. And then just what would be next steps, whether you're taking it into your school or you're thinking about what would it look like after this. So Harmony is really designed to help develop positive relationships. So respecting each other, accepting each other, solving problems, feeling included, becoming responsible, just all of those different social emotional learning concepts that we want students to be able to do. Denny Sanford is the founder of Sanford Harmony, hence the name Sanford Harmony. But his goal really is to transform the lives of youth every single day, and just to help our society become more collaborative and healthy. And he is the philanthropist that has started Sanford Harmony, and thanks to him, it is provided at no cost to schools. So you're able to use it without any cost to you, including the training as well. So just a little bit more about Sanford Harmony. It was researched and developed at Arizona State University, but the ongoing research is going at Johns Hopkins University. And of course, we have the research that we would be happy to share with you later as well if you want to look more into that. But the research shows that there was a strong increase when using Harmony, not just an increase in school enjoyment and empathy, but also student achievement, while the stereotyping and bullying was a decrease. Now, just to know, this is not a bullying program, of course, it's a SEL program, but the bullying was a strong decrease as a result of using the program. So it's just some fast facts about Harmony, in case you weren't sure a little bit more about it. It is for pre-K through 6th grade. That is the focus for the program. We're in more than 14,000 schools and organizations. We're in after-school programs. We're in community programs in large communities like LA and Dallas, Chicago, New York, Best Buddies. as well. And some of the organizations that we're a part of, Boys and Girls Club of America, Communities in School, Beyond the Bell, LA's Best. So lots of different programs, not just schools, are using Sanford Harmony as well. And we do have our professional learning library. That is our online resource that I'm going to be sharing with you. That's in English and in Spanish. So our print materials we have in English, but online they're in both English and in Spanish. And we also do have an app. It's not used very, very frequently, but we do have a Sanford SEL app that I'll tell you a little bit more later about. So why does Harmony work? So one thing, of course, it strengthens learning communities. It helps to build relationships with students, but it's flexible. This is the nice thing. It's not a step-by-step, you have to do this, then you have to do this. It's very flexible. So you may be able to spend more time one day than another. It is great to have a set time if possible, but we know that that doesn't always work in classrooms, especially elementary classrooms. Like I said, I was an elementary teacher. So it is very flexible, and I'll share with you how it can be flexible as we go through the materials. It is CASEL aligned, so it is a CASEL Select program. There are materials in there, not just stories and lessons, but games and different things that students can be engaged in. And like I said, in both English and in Spanish. And like I said, it's free. So the kits and the training is free for schools or organizations to use this and implement it in your schools. So I did mention that it's a CASEL Select program. It does focus on the different areas of social emotional learning. And like I said, we have schools using it in the classroom, but we also have communities using it, after school programs using it as well. So it extends out not just in the schools. Now we fit very well with PBIS. It is not something separate, not a replacement, but it is really intended to be used for all students. Harmony is we do have some schools using it just for Tier 2 or Tier 3, but most of our schools use it for all students. So we have a lot of different things that align with PBIS as well. So we're very purposeful about aligning with other initiatives that you're doing in the classroom. So it's not a separate thing, but you'll be able to see how it reinforces some of the things that you're already doing. So you can kind of see here, one of the main things is it's very proactive. Harmony is meant to be proactive to help develop relationships and to prevent problems, to help solve problems, to help students really focus on those positive behaviors. So that goes right along with your positive PBIS. Now I want to talk about the toolkit just for a minute, and then we're going to dive more deeply into the essential components of the program. So you can see here, this is what the teacher toolkits look like. So you can see here we actually have kits specifically for pre-K and kindergarten, one for first and second, kit for third grade, a kit for fourth grade, and then one that's fifth and sixth grade together. So in our teacher toolkits, they get a lesson and activities books, they get quick connection cards, they get game pieces, they have a Meetup Buddy Up book. We'll look at a little bit more of these as we go through, but they have all the materials that they would possibly need in their teacher toolkit. And our pre-K and kindergarten kits have our little stuffed Z, you can see there in the middle. He's really the focus in the pre-K and K curriculum. But we also have our Harmony Essentials Toolkit. So a lot of our sites that are after school programs or not using it school-wide or every classroom, they will use our Harmony Essentials Toolkits. What really they don't have all the lessons and activities and games, but instead they use just these essential pieces, the Meetup Buddy Up book and the quick connection cards. Those are the essentials. When I talk about essentials, those are the pieces that if you don't have time to do the lessons and activities and games, which are very helpful, we know you don't have time for that. That's okay, but these are the essential pieces that in order to get the benefit from the program, these are the things you want to use. So I'm going to go ahead and just show you those for just a minute so you can see what I'm talking about. It's a little hard to see on the video. So you can see here, this is the Meetup Buddy book, and every toolkit has it, the grade level kits and the Harmony Essentials Toolkit. So all teachers will get one of these for their classroom. And this focuses on the Meetup and Buddy Up, which are our essential practices that you'll be learning about. And every teacher gets quick connection cards. So this is the early childhood set. We also have upper grades. And in this, we have sets of cards that you will use whether it's in Meetup or in Buddy Up. So we have different kinds of cards, and we'll be able to see these and look at these a little bit more detail in a little bit. So our everyday practices that I said, these are the things that we want to use every day if possible. The Meetup and Buddy Up are our everyday practices that we recommend those things happen every day. Now, it doesn't have to be 20 minutes. It may be only 5 minutes that you have time for it. And that's flexible. It doesn't have to be a huge amount of time. Now, one thing being said, it is nice to have your Meetup at the same time every day. That's helpful, but it's not necessary. But also monitoring Harmony goals. So you're going to be making goals in Harmony at the very beginning in your Meetup, and then monitoring those throughout the year to help students monitor how are they making progress toward that, helping to problem solve. But these are the things that are essential in helping to build those healthy relationships. So what I want to do right now is just go in to each one of those. So I'm going to start with Harmony goals first, and then we'll be taking some time for questions in just a couple minutes. So Harmony goals is really one of the first things that teachers will do when they start using Harmony in the classroom. So they're going to establish those with the students collaboratively, but it's really a group agreement to make that the guidelines for how is their classroom going to be. So why Harmony goals? You can kind of see there's some Harmony goals right there on the right-hand side, but really we want to establish those expectations, those positive behavior expectations. Now, you might have teachers already doing something similar to this. When I was a teacher, I actually did not know about Harmony when I was a teacher, but when I taught kindergarten, we had a kindergarten constitution, and all this, we came up with it together and signed it. So it's very similar. Some teachers might already be doing something like this, but it's really promoting those skills that we want: respect and kindness and fairness. It is not the teacher to be telling the students what it is. It really is collaborative so that the students have some impact and influence in what these are. We don't want a lot of Harmony goals. So between 3 to 5 goals is a great amount. We aren't going to have this huge long list. But it's really to help focus on those behaviors that you want those students to have: being able to work together, being able to share, help each other, just being kind, all of those behaviors that you want to see in your classroom. But also it helps to provide structure so that when you have your Meetup and your meeting, you actually have a purpose. You can look back at the Harmony goals and visit them. How is it going? Is it going well? Do we need to work on things? What do we need to talk about? So it does provide that structure and give some organization to how are we going to organize our Meetup when we meet together as a class. So here are some examples of some Harmony goals. These are some great examples to show you. They're very short. There's 5, 4, you can have 3. Of course, the lower grades usually have less, and the upper grades maybe have a little more. But it's really helpful to have the students co-create this with you so that they are empowered. And throughout the year, as you're revisiting those Harmony goals, you focus on the highs. You know, recognizing a student that showed kindness today, or how was someone respectful to you, or recognizing the lows. What are some things we need to work on? How can we solve this problem if not everyone is being kind or listening to each other? What can we do to problem solve and solve that problem that we're having in the classroom? So I want to talk about Buddy Up, but before I do, I want to stop for a minute and see if there's any questions about the Harmony goals or anything that I've mentioned so far.
If you have any questions up to this point, if you could put them in the chat box. And then, Amy, I just have one.
Yes.
So it looked like grades 1 and 2 and 4 and 5 were one kit, but would you suggest that each teacher have their own kit?
So what will happen is we do, and actually it's 5 and 6 that are together.
Okay.
So you'll have, depending on how many classrooms you have at each school, what we do is we do one grade level kit for each 4 teachers. So as far as the grade level, so if you have 3 classrooms in one school, there'll be one pre-K K kit for pre-K if you have pre-K, and one pre-K K kit for kindergarten. However, then every teacher will have the essential toolkit, because the things that every teacher needs are the Meetup Buddy book, book and the card. So every teacher will get a set of those, but there will just be maybe a grade level set for each grade level with that lessons and activity book. And the reason why is also because all of those resources are also in our online professional learning library. So the teachers have access to that at any time.
Perfect. Thank you. That clarifies that.
Yes.
Any other questions that anybody has? Okay, Amy, I think you can proceed.
All right. So Buddy Up is one of our essential everyday practices. So Buddy Up is something that we recommend that you do every single day. But how does it work? It's really purposeful to us, not just pairing kids up together, but they're paired with a different buddy each week. So they have someone different each week. And the purpose of this, of course, is to get them to get to know other students. But they're able to buddy up and work together using our quick connection cards. So that's, I said, every teacher has a set of quick connection cards. And we have some that are conversations where we just ask questions and they get to talk to each other and find out a little bit more. But we also have collaboration where they get to work together to solve a problem or to create something, to be able to work together and problem solve. Now, Buddy Up, like I said, it's an everyday practice that we recommend, but it doesn't have to be long. It can be 5 to 10 minutes. I have a lot of teachers that I know that do this to fill those transition times. So we're lining up for lunch. Okay, line up by your buddy and talk about what is your favorite food, or line up by your buddy and talk about what is your favorite sport or favorite ice cream, or just one of the questions that we have within our questions. Now, you don't have to come up with the questions. We have all of those questions provided in our quick connection cards. So you don't have to create anything. It's already there for you. So it can be very quick, but we do want to be very purposeful in getting students together to work together each day, if possible, to discuss those questions or do those activities. So why Buddy Up? Why is it important? Well, we know that there's kids that are just going to be friends no matter what. Those kids that just are already friends, but we know there's some kids that don't necessarily fit in. Those kids that maybe don't get picked as partners, but it brings together diverse peers. Maybe kids that wouldn't normally work together. They get a chance to learn about each other and work together. So, and helping some of those kids who maybe feel alienated, getting them involved and making them feel like they're a part of the classroom as well. But it also is helpful for those kids, especially, they're going to find out that they have things in common, as well as celebrate and recognize our differences, but even see some talents that maybe they didn't recognize before. They didn't really know much about that student. So it really just gives an opportunity for students to work together with students they wouldn't necessarily work with. And of course, through using the cards and the discussions that we have, it helps to promote collaboration and caring and empathy, all those skills that we're wanting students to do, having to work together and problem solve. They have to communicate with each other as well as they do these activities. There was always some type of communication that has to happen when they do that. So what I want to do is talk a little bit more about Buddy Up. Now, our Meetup Buddy Up book that I showed you, that is to help you get started with Meetup Buddy Up, or with just Buddy Up, excuse me. But the quick connection cards are the essential tools, and all teachers will get that. All teachers will get this book to get started, and all teachers will get the set of cards. And on the quick connection cards, they have a question or an activity for students to do to work together with their buddy. So I'm going to go ahead and share one with you right now. I actually want you to do this. In the chat box, this is one of our quick connection cards. What is your superpower? Or I'm going to word this differently. If you could have a superpower, what would it be? So this is an example of one of our quick connection cards. If you could have a superpower, what would it be? Go ahead and type it in the chat box. What would your superpower be if you could have one? I would say, I think I would have the power to heal. That would be my superpower. I would love to heal people. Do we have some in there, Beth?
Vicky says she would want to be able to fly.
Yes, that's a good one.
She would want unlimited patience.
Oh, yeah, that might be
Sarah,
good.
the ability to be in 5 places at once.
Yes, those are awesome superpowers. But yeah, so if you were using this, what would you want your superpower to be? This is one of the prompts that you would have the students talk with each other about, so they could learn from each other, and they could learn a lot of things just right there. I can kind of tell just by what people said what their life might be like. Wish you could be in 5 places at once. Sounds like you're a pretty busy person. So this is just an example of one of our quick connection cards. Are there any others that you want to share, Beth?
Sure, somebody said be more flexible, Catherine, and then Caroline said she would like to know the answer to solving difficult situations with students.
Oh, yes. I wish there was a magic answer for everything, right?
Exactly.
When you're working with kids, there's not always just a magic answer, unfortunately. So these are what our cards look like. We have 3 different types of quick connection cards. So we have our community builder cards, which is really for Meetup, and we'll talk about Meetup in a minute. But those are really just focused on when you have the whole class together in your Meetup, working on building a community. So you can see the example there is the human knot, how they have to work together to unravel the knots. That's just an example, but it's something that they have to do. It's also something that you could do, the community builders, or something at schools could do in their staff meetings as well. Now, the conversations is what we just did, and this works best with Buddy Up that we just talked about. The one that we just did, what would you want your superpower to be, is an example of our conversation cards. So here's another one. What is your favorite breakfast? Who makes it and who eats it with you? So the conversations really are questions to get the students to learn more about each other and share things with each other. So for example, I'm going to read a couple more conversation. What is your favorite holiday and why? If you could be a grown-up for a day, what would you do first? If you could be an animal, which animal would you be? What is your favorite fruit? If you could open up a store, what type of store would it be? And if you could go back in time, where would you go and what would you do? So those are just a couple examples. We have a huge stack of cards that can be used. So you can pre-select, teachers can pre-select the cards and choose which ones they want to do, or they can just randomly pick out a card and use them. So it's very flexible. There's really no planning involved when it comes to Buddy Up. Buddy Up really is more of that it can happen really quickly, but it's really helpful to make sure that you do it every single day to give the students a chance to get to know each other as well. And then we have our collaborations card, which is really good for Buddy Up. It's different from conversations because what this does is it focuses on actually things that they have to do together to problem solve and cooperate. So for example, they have to try not to laugh for as long as possible while your buddy stares or makes silly faces at you. Another one is you have to make an paper airplane with your buddy, but you can only each use one hand. So you can use one hand, your buddy can use one hand, and you have to make the paper airplane together. One more is how many can you name? Work with your buddy to list as many types of desserts as you can. So lots of different types of things. They have to communicate with each other. They have to problem solve and cooperate with each other. Some of them require, some of these collaborations do require some supplies. So these are ones that you might want to not just pull out of the card and just read it, because some of them might require blocks, like building a tower with your buddy. Or like I said, the paper airplane, they're going to need a piece of paper to do that. So this one is going to require a little bit more planning, just to make sure that you have the resources and materials for that. But it's usually nothing extensive. Like I said, a piece of paper for a paper airplane, or having the piece of paper and a pencil for writing the list of desserts. So nothing too extensive, but just making sure that you do have those materials ready. Now, one thing I do want to talk about with Buddy Up really quick that I didn't mention before is you want students to buy in. So the very first time you do Buddy Up, you want to partner them with friends. So if you start them right away with kids that they don't know, or kids they usually don't play with or interact with, they're not going to have as much buy-in. But if you partner them up with their friends first, that first week, before you mix it up and have them meet with a different buddy, then you're going to have more student buy-in. So that's just a recommendation, something that we've seen that has helped get students to be more engaged with Buddy Up. So here's some examples of what Buddy Up looks like in some classrooms. So the one thing that is really important with Buddy Up is that there is a chart, so that each week it changes and they know exactly who their buddies are. Now, obviously, this is an early childhood classroom with the names and the faces. They have the red carpet there, so they were really creative with that. They can see who their buddies are for the week. But it doesn't have to be that way. It can just be a list of names. with them next to each other. So you can kind of tell who the early childhood teachers are and who the upper elementary teachers are by the way their buddies are. But neither one is right or wrong. You just want to make sure you do have it posted so they can see who is buddies with who for the week. So what questions do you have about Buddy Up for me?
Anybody have questions for Buddy Up? Feel free to put them in the chat box. Does the teacher buddy up with a student, or is it always students with students?
Well, if we have, that's a good example. If we have, let's say we have an odd number, they can be a student that buddies up with the teacher, or if there's a student that's absent, yes, definitely the teacher can buddy up. Obviously, if we have an even number of students, we want to pair them up with other students, but definitely if a student is absent, or you do have an odd number in your class, the teacher can definitely buddy up.
Nice. Any other questions? I think we're good to continue.
All right, great. Now I want to talk about Meetup. So we talked about.
Can I just interrupt? Sorry, we got one question right under the wire, and I don't want to move it into the next section. Can you refresh on the research behind why Buddy Up makes a difference?
Yes, so I can actually go back to that slide. But what they have shown, oops, I'm going backwards. There we go. So one of the things that the research shows, students usually don't work together or work with students who are diverse learners. Usually they stick with kids that maybe they're already friends with, or people who are similar to them. They may not normally work together. So what it does, it has increased students feeling a part of the classroom. It has increased students becoming friends with students that they weren't friends with before, that students they maybe wouldn't have normally been friends with or interacted with before. Because what the main benefit from Buddy Up was that students are discovering what they have in common. They're recognizing they have, even though that they might be very different from each other, they also have a lot of things in common. But then it's helping them to respect the differences, that everyone's a little bit different. Some of the things are the same. But it also, one of the research behind is it promoted the collaboration and helped students become more empathetic towards each other as they learn more about those diverse students that they didn't take the time to know before, didn't recognize, or didn't even, not that they didn't want to know them, but they just didn't plan to do it. So it's really purposeful in that, and making students who are diverse come together, learn about each other, accept their differences, and also what they have in common. Does that answer the question?
Caroline says yes.
Okay, great. And because it's one-on-one too, so they can get to know each other differently than if it was in a group. All right, go back through these buddies. All right, so Meetup is the other everyday practice. So we said working in partners every day. I'm doing the Buddy Up every day, but Meetup is also what we recommend that you do every single day. Now, obviously Meetup might take a little bit longer than Buddy Up, so it works best if it's at a scheduled time, maybe at the beginning of the day or right after lunch or something like that. But we also know that there might be times that teachers can't do it. So we do know it's flexible, or you need to change the schedule and do it a different time. But we do know that kids really like structure, and that the organization does help to make it run more smoothly. But you may not be able to do it every day. We understand that, but we do recommend that it happens every day. A couple of things about Meetup you kind of see here, this is an example of a Meetup right here, is that we want students to be in a circle. So that's one of the important parts. They're not sitting at their seats, they're in a circle. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle, but they are in a circle. They greet each other, they share with each other, they monitor those harmony goals that we talked about. It's an opportunity for them to solve problems and work out those things that are not going well, but also do some of those community building activities. So we looked at those cards. We have the cards that are specifically community building cards, as well as some of the lessons and activities that we have. Those can also be done in the Meetup. Now, what we recommend, like I said, it could be 5 minutes that you do a Meetup. It could be 15 minutes. It depends on what you're doing. It does depend, obviously, if you have some problems that are happening or things that you need to problem solve, it might take 15 minutes, whereas there might be things going well. We don't need to talk about any of that. We don't have any real problems right now at this point. Maybe just a 5-minute quick meet up to get together, to greet each other, and just share with each other. Now, the reason meetup is important is because we want all students to feel like they belong in a community. So it really starts at the very beginning with that focus on those positive relationships, but also those expectations with the Harmony Goal. The Harmony Goals are utilized during meetup. Meetup is the time that we focus on those Harmony Goals and revisit them. But we know that some students don't necessarily feel like they belong. And they might have a hard time connecting with students. So this gives them an opportunity that everyone's involved. That's why we're in a circle. Everyone's part of this classroom. Everyone belongs in here. Everyone's going to get an opportunity to share. So it's just an opportunity to be a community together with students. And it builds on those things that we want students to do, like teamwork. We want them to be able to work together. We want them to include others. So we're including everyone in this, where everyone gets a chance to share. Everyone gets the opportunity to be part of the community. It also, of course, focuses, like I said, that problem solving is huge. Getting students to communicate and collaborate with each other doesn't always happen on its own. So this is an opportunity to practice it and to focus on that to help students to develop those skills as well. And of course, we want students to become understanding of each other, and we want to build empathy. So in Meetup is an opportunity for us to do that. So I want to talk about Meetup a little bit. We have 4 main steps for Meetup. So the first step for Meetup is greetings. The students will greet each other in some way or another. We have some examples of some ways that you can greet, but you can really do it in any way you want. Step 2 is sharing and responding. Now, not everyone's going to share. I did say everyone's going to get an opportunity to share, but the teacher will want to choose probably 2 students each meet up to share. So 2 students share. It can be anything. It could be something that happened at home. It could be something that that they're excited about. Maybe they got a new dog, or they had a baby in the house, or something, whatever it is. And then the responding gives a chance for a couple of classmates in that circle to ask some questions, not comments, but ask questions, follow-up questions. So every student gets an opportunity to share on a different date. So that is the one thing the teachers will need to do, is just organize who's going to share on what day. It's not necessarily a show. It's not a show and tell where they bring something and share it. It's really more sharing something that's happened or something they want to share. Now, we have had the question of, what if they share something that's inappropriate, or something that we're like, whoa, I can't believe they shared that. If you feel that that's going to be a concern, then what we recommend is that those 2 students that are going to share for that day, right when they get to school, if possible, just tell the teacher what it is that they're planning to share, just so we can make sure we don't have any things that are happening that we were not prepared for. It's better to be proactive than reactive. But step 3 is really that check-in, monitoring those Harmony goals, sharing highs and lows, and problem solving. So for example, sharing a high might be, who could share with me someone who was kind to them this week? And so they can share out, so-and-so was kind to me because they did this. Or a low, and not naming students, but which of these are we having a problem with? Are we having a problem with sharing, or what? So sharing highs and lows to problem solve, especially when we have some of those lows of things that aren't going well. And then step 4 is the quick connection at the end. So steps 1 and 4 are pretty quick. Step 2 and 3 is a little bit more more in depth, might take a little bit longer. So it depends on, how much time you have for. You might only have 1 student share if you don't have a lot of time. The community check-in, you might, just decide, okay, we're just going to do 1 high today, or 1 high and 1 low. So the teacher really has the control over how much of this and how deep we're going to go into it. So just an example of each step. So of course, step 1 is that greeting each other. So they can greet each other by name, do a high five, pass a smile. We even have a resource of 25 ways to say hello, so they can do it in different languages. So it doesn't have to be the same thing every time. So today we're going to say aloha. Everyone's going to say aloha to each other. So I'd say aloha, Beth, and she would pass it along and say aloha. So we're saying hello in different ways, greeting. Everyone is getting greeted. So everyone is feeling involved in part of that community. Now this, you see here that this 25 ways to say hello is a resource that you have. It is also available in our online professional learning library. And in a few minutes, we will be going to that so I can show you what resources are there. But step 2 is that sharing. Like I said, 2 or 3, I would say 2, not 3, because that could take it a long time. After they share, I don't like to say comments. I like to say, do you have any questions? But you could say comments depending on that. But if you open it up to comments, students might say, oh, I have a dog too, and my dog did this. And it could go on a lot longer than what you really intended. And then we lost the purpose of it. Step 3, like I said, community check-in, monitoring those goals, going back, having this chart posted somewhere near where you have your meetup is going to be helpful so you can refer to it easily. But you can review the goals, and maybe sometimes it's just to review the goals. Maybe we don't have any highs and lows yet. Maybe at the beginning we're just going to review what our goals are. But then they can share examples of highs or lows, and then working together to do that problem solving, like I said. And the last step is, this is just an example of the highs and lows. Problem solving, who's been kind to you, or maybe a low, nobody wanted to sit with me at lunch, or maybe nobody picked me at PE or something like that. So these are just some examples of what some highs and lows. Now I wouldn't say with the lows we would want to like pick out individual students, but a problem that they have, we definitely could problem solve that. And then step 4 is really that quick meetup. It could be send a smile around the circle. It could be the wave. We like to do the wave a lot, so we do the wave if your students can handle that. Or high fives on the way out, just something quick to connect so every student gets to connect with another student. So every student feels involved in the classroom and in that community. So I went through that kind of fast. What questions do you have about Meetup?
Questions about Meetup? Okay, I think you can proceed.
All right, very good. I do want to share for a minute. I just want to share a couple of the cards that are the community builders that can be used in the meetup. So for example, here is one, charades. A student chooses a card from a deck of picture or word cards, acts it out, and then the group guesses what it is. So that's one example. Another one is a silent squeeze. Form a circle with everyone holding hands. One person starts a silent squeeze, and then it must pass on. And then if it got all the right way around the circle or not. Other things are holding that pose. One person starts as it, calls freeze for everyone else to act like statues, then tries to make the statues break out of character and laugh. The first to laugh becomes it for the next round. So just some things to help just everyone. The community builders are really just to help everyone feel involved and to include everyone in a fun way where they're communicating with each other and solving problems as well.
Amy, I had a question. So
awesome.
Somebody was asking if the meetup could be used in like a responsive classroom morning meeting or other morning meeting settings they might be using.
Yeah, definitely. We do. We don't have like a set when does it have to happen? Where does it have to happen? You know, the important part is getting students together to be in a community and to really focus on, you know, those goals of how are we going to treat each other? How do we want it to be? How do we want our classroom to be? So, or what that looks like is going to vary. So it's really flexible.
Meetup. Are meetup questions organized around themes?
The meetup questions actually are not around themes, but we do have lessons and activities that are based on themes. Yes, and I'm going to get into those. So we do have lessons and activities. The cards themselves are not on themes, but the lessons and activities are.
Okay. Last call for questions for meetup. All right, looks good.
All right, very good. All right, so I want to talk about the units because you were just asking me a question about the themes. And so the lessons and activities actually are specifically around the SEL competencies. So they focus on themes. There's lessons, there's games, there's activities. Now in the lower grades, it focuses more on stories. So we have our Z there, Z character, and the lessons really focus around his character, whereas the upper grades really focus more on games and different collaborative activities that they're going to do together as well. So the themes that we have in every unit, whether it's the pre-KK lesson activity book or the 5th and 6th grade, we have diversity and inclusion, empathy and critical thinking, communication, problem solving, and peer relationships. So we've got 5 different focus themes, and we have lessons and activities that are in each one of these themes. So I want to just share with you, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I want to go ahead and share with you a little bit more about the themes and the units. Now, all of the different kits, the grade level kits, have these lesson and activities books. They're also in our online professional learning library, but they all include goals and objectives, the research and relevance behind them. They all have stories, those games, activities, and different lessons. We also have homeschool connections in there as well. And then in our appendix, we've got the resources. So if it's a game, the game pieces are in the back of the appendix of the book. Now, like I said, usually only one per grade level has this actual book, but all of these materials are in the online professional learning library. So teachers can actually go there and print them out. They don't have to try to copy them out of the book. They can just go and print them out from the online professional learning library or download them and save them to their computer. There's no copyright or anything, so you can use anything as much as you want, copy it as much as you want. Sometimes it's hard to copy out of a book, with that crease in the middle, so that's why it's nice to go to the online professional learning library. All the game materials, all the resources, they're all in that online professional learning library as well. So we're going to look and focus in at each unit really quick. In here, but the pre-K through 2nd grade, like I said, really focuses on Z, and I can't even begin to pronounce his name. He's like some alien. It's a super long name, and we just call him Z. But in the pre-K through 2nd grade, there are 5 storybooks that match the 5 units. We have one on diversity and inclusion, and empathy, and communication, problem solving, all of those. So there's a storybook that goes with each one, and then lessons and activities. And then we have the Harmony app. I mentioned that before. It also shares the stories, so you can access the stories on the app. The kids, it's a free app, so kids can download the app on their own device at home if they want to access the stories there as well. Now, grades 3 through 6, I kind of talked about this a little bit, but we have games. They have a lot more games and with their lessons and activities where they're getting a chance to role play and problem solve. And they're really focusing in the upper grades with peer pressure and stereotyping, bullying, and just being able to understand different perspectives. So that's really the focus of grades 3 through 6. They don't have Z in their content because, of course, that doesn't, it's not as geared towards their age group. And all of those games are in the online learning library as well. So I want to just look at one of our units. So the first unit is diversity and inclusion. So this really focuses on 4 different things within this unit. You can see that the first one is really getting to know each other, then focusing on our commonalities, then also focusing on diversity and building community. So every one of our units, whether it's pre-KK or 5th and 6th grade, has diversity and inclusion as their first unit, and then looking at these different areas. But like I said, the activities and games will vary based on the grade. So, for example, in our pre-K and K, this is Meet Z is the first lesson. Finding things in common. The storybooks go along with that, celebrating your diversity and also belonging together. So Z is kind of different. So as he in himself is very diverse. So finding things in common and how everyone belongs together is really the focus of Unit 1 for diversity and inclusion in the pre-K and K grades. So you can see here, this is actually from our, this is 1.3, so this is the lesson 1.3 from Unit 1, but creating an awesome us picture. So they're working together with they can work together with their buddy in this, where they create an awesome us picture together. And that if you wanted more information about this, of course, we have it in detail in the book as well. So this is just an example of that. But in 3rd grade, creating a community name and motto. This is lesson 1.4 in Unit 1, where students work together, they develop a common identity, they work together to create that common name and motto for their class. So this is more of a classroom activity, as the last one was more of a buddy activity. So some of the lessons are going to be with buddies, some of them are going to be with the whole class, some are going to be working the meetup really well. So every lesson's a little different. But you can see here the materials are also listed of where they are at in the appendix. Fourth, fifth, and sixth have the commonalities game. This is really fun to do, but they have the commonalities card that they work together with their buddy to see what they have in common. So they can see what things they have in common, how many things they have different, and they're going to learn things from each other by playing this game and finding more about them. What is your favorite flavor of ice cream? We can see what we have in common, but also what is different. And that game board is going to be, that is part of the kit. The game boards are in there, but they're also in on the professional learning library as well. But it looks just a little bit bigger picture of that so you can see what that looks like. So what I want to do now, I want to stop for a second before I go into the online professional learning library to see if there's other questions. But then what I want to do is I want to show you what the online professional learning library looks like so you can see what materials are there. Every teacher has access to this. So what I would recommend, I have a username and password there. I actually don't even recommend using that. Everyone can have an access to it for free. So if you go to this link, sanfordharmony.org/PLL, you can actually create your own account with your email address, and then you can log in each time and access materials as much or as often as you would like. So before we go into that, I want to stop to see, are there any other questions before we look at the online learning library?
So any questions that you'd like to put in the chat box? How many lessons are there in total? And are there enough lessons to get through a year?
Yes, so we don't have like a recommendation of how often to do lessons, honestly, because we know that the lessons take longer. So I'm going to just preface by that. The lessons do take longer than doing the quick connection cards and the meetup and buddy up, all of those. So there are there are 5 units because we have the 5 different areas with the diversity and inclusion, and then let me go through empathy and critical thinking. So there are 4 lessons within every unit. So there are approximately 20 lessons in here. So but like I said, if you were doing one a week, there wouldn't be enough for one every single week to do. But most teachers don't do this one every single week because they do take a lot more time. So if you do maybe a couple each month, because it does take a lot longer to do. But yes, there are 4 lessons within every unit. A couple of them have 5 lessons in every unit. Some of these lessons too you might do over a couple of days. You may not get it done in one day. But it's very flexible. But there are approximately 20 lessons in each. And some of them can be done more than once. Some of these lessons can be done more than once. Some of them are games, especially the commonalities game. The commonalities game can be done multiple times because of the fact they're going to be doing it with a buddy, and they can do it multiple times with different buddies. So some of the lessons will work multiple times. Others will be maybe just a one-time lesson.
And then with the lessons, so the ones where there's a couple grades sharing, does each grade do the same lessons? And then if the kids transition, say, from second to third, they'd get the same lessons again? And how does that work?
Right. So with the 5th and 6th grade, they do have the same lesson book. So they do have the same lessons, and the 1st and 2nd grade as well. I will tell you from my experience, most schools do not get through all of the lessons. They don't focus on the lessons very much. But a lot of times, they might have already done the activity the year before, but what's really nice is they're in a different group of students. They're not in the same class from year after year. The purpose is not the lesson as much it is the community building, the problem solving, and the collaboration, which you're going to have a different mix of students. So, and it actually says if they've already done this before, you're expanding on what they've already done. So there is that recognition in here. You're already you're familiar with this lesson. You did it last year, but we're in a different group now. We're going to, and some of the things they're going to need to do over and over again, like stop, think, and cool off. How to not lose our temper and how to relax. To be patient with each other. When it comes to building relationships and conflict. So yes, it does for 5th and 6th and 1st and 2nd, they do have the same lessons that for both grades, but we've not had any. The schools that do use it haven't had any problems because it's always a different group of kids and they're always with somebody different. So the purpose is more of really building those relationships with the kids they have now.
Okay. Is there a principal kit or something for an administrator and or something for like a counselor or another leader?
We don't have separate resources as far as the kit goes, but on our online professional learning library, there's a little bit more information there as far as resources and training and things that can be done.
Okay.
And we have a lot of counselors that will use the kit, just like a teacher, that counselors will get a kit as well, so that they can, if they're working with a class, they can use some of those as well, some of those lessons and things.
And could counselors use them in small groups?
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah, it's flexible, so it can be used with a large class, it can be used with small groups, it can be used however works. Obviously, if it's a group activity, then you definitely want to have like 4 or 5 kids or something like that. Whereas the buddy up, they would be, with buddies. So, but definitely you could use it in whatever type of situation, because we do have after-school programs that use it too. And so that has kids in multiple grades together. So we have kindergartners and fourth graders together sometimes too in those after-school programs. So it's very flexible in how you're going to incorporate and use it, however works best for you as well.
So if they're doing it in small groups, do you recommend that it's also being done universally in the school as well?
Well, I will say that we see the most, or the schools see the most benefit and the most changes when it's done with all the students school-wide. But definitely, if you wanted to start it and do it with small groups, and I have schools that start that way, and they do it that way, they pilot it to try to see, let's do it in small groups with counselors and see how that goes first. But it definitely has it when we see the research that we have does show it when it's school-wide. They see more of a benefit and more of those things that we were talking about, the advantages of it.
Somebody else asked, they have a very diverse population.
Mm-hmm.
Is there cultural relevance built into the program?
Well, a lot of what they have in the there is not a lot of one culture listed. So as far as for example, they try to be as diverse as possible because we're in a lot of different communities, especially like LA, which is very diverse, and Chicago and New York. But Z, the main character for the pre-K through second grade, is an alien. He's green, and they actually call him. They don't call him a him. Excuse me. They call it. Trying to think what they call him now, a Z. So it's trying to be that gender neutral kind of thing. So they have that in there. But really, the lessons and activities and the questions as far as culture goes, depending on, I have not encountered anything that they're more just really general as far as culture goes. There's nothing that has been towards one culture or another, but just accepting when they have conversations. The prompts are more of a chance to get to know each other and their cultures, of like, tell me about a holiday that you like to celebrate. So it's not focused in on specific cultures like, Christmas or Kwanzaa or certain things like that. It allows all students to bring in their own experiences to recognize and celebrate all those different diverse backgrounds and cultures.
And then one more question before I turn this back over to you to do the online professional learning library. Yes. Are there pre and post assessments that are available with the program?
We do have, we have incorporated, and I have not had a chance to interact with that yet, but I have my colleagues that they have developed, because they hadn't been doing it in the past. What they've been doing is just a training, and then that was it. So now what they do have, I honestly do not know a lot about it, but I do know that they have been doing something to check in, an assessment to see how things are going, so that we can see how is it going with your students. Are we seeing some benefits? So we do have that. I don't know a lot about it personally myself at this point, because I've not had the opportunity to use it yet. But I do know that they have been building that so that we can provide continual support by using that as a reference of where are you at and how are things going and making decisions on, the implementation.
Okay.
So I will find out more about that, Beth, and I can get that to you. I just don't know a lot about it because it's been in development. And
Okay.
so us trainers don't know about everything until it happens.
Sure, of course. So whenever you have that, I'd be happy to
Yes.
hold on to that information. So I'm going to let you go ahead and finish.
Okay, so I want to go to the Online Professional Learning Library so that you can see what resources are here. All right, so I'm logged into the Online Professional Learning Library, and when you're here, there's a lot of different resources in here. So we have online training that's available too. That can be individual training that's done at their own convenience. We also do have, I know that was a question. We do have opportunities for different types of trainings. We have training modules that are right here on our Online Professional Learning Library. We have virtual trainings kind of like what I'm doing right now, but more of a training rather than a webinar, where it's a virtual live with a person training. We also have on-site training that can be done with school staff. So we actually have somebody that comes there. And like I said before, it's at no cost to you. As well. So it's kind of flexible. If you only have a few teachers that are going to be trained, it's usually good to do a virtual training or do it online. If you're going to have a whole staff or multiple, a big group, then the on-site works really well for that. But also here's all the kits. So all of the kits are available in English and in Spanish. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to go into first and second grade, so you can kind of see what this looks like. So all of the English resources are going to be first. So as I scroll through, I'll see here that there's the welcome letter, all of these different information letters as well, a letter that can be sent to parents. But what I want to click on for a minute is the Meetup Buddy Up book, so you can see what it looks like. It's the same exact thing, but it's a digital copy. So if teachers lose their copy, they can access it, and they can have all of the resources that they had in the kit they have on here as well. Same thing, there's the quick connection cards. If you lose it, maybe they want to just pull it up and share it on the screen. The bad thing about this is you can see it's 388 pages. So it's there, but it's maybe not as convenient as pulling the cards out. But you can just pull it up and have it there as well. Let me get back here a minute. Sorry. And then as I scroll through, there's that lessons and activities. There's the unit 1, unit 2. So it's actually broken down. Instead of having the whole book all together, it's broken down into each unit. So we can print the lessons from each unit. We can go right to the unit that we want and print that lesson out. So just for example, you can see here, this is unit 5 for grades 1 and 2, focus on peer relationships. Now in the pre-K through second grade, these are the storybooks that I was talking about. So you can see here, this is the storybook that goes along with Z. So we'll see Z in here. But what's nice about the actual books is the pictures on one page and the words are on the other. So the teacher can actually look at the words as they're showing the pictures to the students. But they're going through, I'm trying to find Z, he's not there yet. He's in all the stories, but later on he's not as frequent in first and second grade. So those are those books, but then we get the lesson and activity book. We have Buddy Time Music on MP3 that this goes along with pre-K through second grade, as well as the lyrics, so you can download the songs to play when they're buddying up together. But then everything is also in Spanish. So all of the resources, so I can go through the different stories, or I can go to the lessons and activities if I wanted to use this. This is really more for the teacher, but if I wanted it in Spanish, I can use it as well. And what works best is to download it first, and then you can print out the pages that you want. So it's better to download the resources and then try to print rather than just printing right from here. So like I said, everything that's here, they can download and save it, print it out. You can use it as much as you want. Other things that are in here are, we have training resource library as well. Information about that. We have webinars that go on every single month that help they follow and continue the learning for Harmony, and sometimes it's focused in on peer relationships, sometimes it's focused on diversity and inclusion, but we have different webinars each month. And when you sign up for an account, you actually get a notification that, hey, this month there's going to be a webinar about this. So you can attend it or you can watch the recording. They record them all and save them for later. The other thing I love, this is what I love this, is on-demand video teaching modules. So I can go in here to the Harmony modules, and if I want to see what it looks like in the classroom. So I'm having a hard time visualizing it. So let me go down to pre-K and K, and I can see an example of Unit 1. So I can see a lesson from Unit 1. Or I can go down and I can see a lesson from Unit 4. So you can actually see lessons in action. And so it's kind of helpful for teachers to see this so they can see, well, what does this lesson look like? And so it's just very helpful and a good resource for teachers. So it's broken into grade levels like you can see here. But those are there for teachers to use and watch to help support them as they're implementing the program. We do have SEL modules that are coming. They're not available quite yet, but they're coming soon. So you can see here, there's things, some more resources. So this might be things that administrators might want to use more with their teachers or things like that. So resources that will be available there. A couple other things that I want to go to. Let me go back out, is the Teacher Resource Library. So the Teacher Resource Library, what we have here, if you are going to, let's say you decide we even have a train the trainer model, so we train counselors or we train administrators or district staff that decide they're going to train a school or train schools. So we've got different resources, whether it's a training agenda of how you're going to train your staff. There's a booklet about that you can use for note taking. Now, if you have somebody come on site to do your training, they'll bring these with them, so you wouldn't have to download them. The scope and sequence is helpful. It could be helpful too for administration to see how the focus themes align to the grade level. So you can see that resource, as well as there's that 25 ways to say hello I talked about. Z, our Z character, this is actually a printable one. We've had some schools that actually print Z out, and what they do is they use that, they put the student's name on it, and that's how they do their buddy up. So it's just a printable Z right there that you can see that can be printed out and colored. The buddy time songs are available here, as well as a meetup planning sheet. This is really nice because some teachers really like to plan their meetups ahead of time, so they can plan, okay, this time we're gonna say on Monday we're gonna greet in Hawaiian with aloha. On Tuesday we're gonna go ni hao in Chinese. So some teachers like to have this kind of be a plan so that it goes more smoothly, and they exactly have who's going to share. They put the names on that. So it's just another resource that they can use to help them plan their meetups. So lots of resources here on that Teacher Resource Library, as well as all of the kits, the webinars, the videos. All of those things are available at no cost when they create their own account here on the PLL. What questions do you have about the online PLL?
So any questions that you have for Amy? And Amy, so we're closing in on the end here.
Yes.
Do you have a slide where you want people or who they should contact for more information?
Yes. Let me go back to.
And while Amy's doing that, if you have questions, put them in the chat box.
Yes. So let me get here. Sorry, just switching back.
That's okay.
Sorry, and I'm sorry I went over. I really am really good about that, so I apologize for going over. Just wanted to mention the mobile app, and I'll give you my resource in a minute, but these are the things, the next steps that I would recommend. Go to that online PLL and explore what the resources are there, see those video teaching modules, and then if the teachers, of course, next steps would be to establish Harmony goals and meet up Buddy Up. But you can learn more about the Sanford programs on the PLL, and then if you're interested in signing up and doing training, you can reach out to me. I'll give you my contact. This is my email address. Shannon Smith. Beth, have you been in contact with Shannon Smith?
I have.
So it can be myself or Shannon, either one of us. If you want more information, if you're interested and you wanted to bring it to your school and you want to do some training, depending, it might be me, it might be someone else. It just depends on availability and all of that. But definitely, if you have questions, reach out to me. Shannon's she's busier than I am. I actually am a virtual specialist, so I work on my computer all the time. So if you want to reach out to me initially, if I don't have the answer, I have the people who do. So I can always point you in the right direction if it's something that I can't answer.
Okay, you did a great job giving us all of the information about this.
Yes.
So any other questions? I want to put this out for folks.
And feel free to follow us. We are on Facebook. So they have different posts each day and things like that where you can see a buddy up in a classroom and just real examples. So feel free, if you're on Facebook, if you're in that generation, to follow, you can follow us and see just a little bit more about Sanford Harmony as well. And
so
Twitter.
A few participants thanking you for your time and the information.
Thank you, and I apologize for going a couple minutes over. I never like to do that, so I am so sorry.
Oh, you're okay. So you gave a lot of information in a short period of time, so you get a little bit of a break there.
Yeah.
How long does it take to get a kit?
It really doesn't take too long. So what the steps are, as far as in order to get kits, what you do, it's usually with Shannon or someone like Shannon, where you sign an MOU, which an MOU is just a memorandum of understanding that you're going to use this program. Who are you going to use it with? It's just saying, yes, we're going to use it. You're getting all these materials for free. We agree we're going to use it in these grade levels, because you're getting it all for free. But then as soon as that's signed by whoever it is at the school, then they will get the kits shipped to you. So it doesn't usually take very long. It's just they got to get that memorandum, MOU, signed first, that yes, I want to do this. And then they get, how many grades you have, how many classes, and then how many kits you need, and then they get those shipped. And it usually doesn't take very long. I would say, I'm going to estimate, but I mean, it's usually within 10 days or so that the schools will get it. It doesn't take very long.
I put Shannon's email in the chat box.
Yes. So if you have questions about it in general, you can reach out to me. If you actually want to get started and you're interested in bringing it to your school, Shannon is going to be your best first step for that step.
Okay. Other questions? All right, I think it looks like we're good. Amy, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
We will notify everybody when this webinar has been closed captioned and is ready to be posted so that you can share this. And again, you know how to reach out to myself if you have questions. And if by some chance you lose Amy's email or mine, just contact me and I can put you in touch with them as well. If you are looking for people who are using this program, we've asked the program suppliers to have some folks on deck that would be willing to take contacts from other educators. So if you're interested in something like that, let me know and I'll get back to Shannon and Amy and we'll find somebody to connect you with. But have a great day, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us on this version of our Evidence-Based Practices for SEL webinar, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Amy.